I wish there was more intentional collaboration between hospitals, parks, recreation, church, civic groups, other government agencies. There are bright spots in this.
Well, last week, the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights examined the impact that language barriers have on government services and health care for people with limited English proficiency. They explored how government agencies and recipients of federal funding provide language access, the challenges and the best practices for improving that access. And there was a familiar face on that screen who testified. We have Meadowfield Elementary multilingualist, learning specialist, Bryan Lynip, who is joining us this morning with a full breakdown of that hearing. And so, Bryan, go ahead and kind of talk to me a little bit about that process and what we're kind of seeing here in the Midlands and then what you talked about.
Sure. I mean, I work with students whose parents are English learners, and the students themselves are English learners.
Yeah.
And in the course of that work, some of the things that I see that are barriers that kind of impact us very directly, I'll illustrate one that I spoke about at the Commission, is accessing things like health services in a timely way so that students can come to school.
Right.
So for example, one of those barriers sometimes is vaccinations and lack of getting those vaccinations. One of the things that's required to go to school in the United States is to have the proper vaccinations. And sometimes that process can take some time. And so that was a story about a student who had 2 to 3 weeks of missed instruction because he couldn't get the right vaccinations. And these are some things that feel like are barriers that we could overcome with a little bit of collaboration and some work together.
And now there's something new that you kind of learned while you were there in Washington, D.C. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in the past, there has been an obligation on the part of agency heads to provide services in a native language, at least to make a very good effort to do that. And on March 1st, there was a rescindment of that previous order that's establishing English as the primary language of the United States, which of course it is. But in so doing, it eliminates the sort of obligation on the part of the agency to provide that as a human right or a civil right, which of course was why I was there.
Right,
was the suggestion that some of these basic services are actually civil rights that are entitled to people, regardless of whether they speak English or not.
So then really quickly, Bryan, where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, I certainly are watching that legislation to see it does not require agencies to stop providing translated materials. The executive order does not require that.
Right.
However, it no longer makes it a duty. We certainly hope that agencies will continue to do that and that we can work together to provide these health and human services which benefit all of us.
And listen, the work that you're doing there at Meadowfield Elementary and a lot of other specialists are really doing around South Carolina and the country are a true testament on helping those families. So
we certainly hope so.
Yes, definitely. And we appreciate you stopping by this
Absolutely.
morning.
Thank
Definitely
you.
giving us an inside look onto testifying in front of the Capitol there.
Yeah,
So we appreciate
it's my privilege, yeah.
Of course. All righty, everyone. We're going to be putting more of information about this on our website, WLTX.com, so you can always refer back to this conversation.
We're in March Madness, so it's peak season for scams.